Welcome back from spring break, it's time to learn again. Don't give yourself a headache, just dive into it, man. Give yourself some grace, cause this stuff is tough. Now let's make all A's, cause I know you're good enough. Hey! Oh no. Hey guys, it's Editing Me here. Stick around for the last minute and a half or so of this video. There is some entertaining content to be had, and enjoy this meme, everyone. Let's go on ahead to the lesson. Hey all you cool cats and kittens, it's me, Miss Kerr here, and I am here to update you with what we are doing for this week. Let's begin. Whoops, you didn't need to see that. So scooting over to my tab for English 3. Alright, if you go down into modules, you'll see there are some notes that are available for you for today's module, which is titled 4-14 Tuesday. There's a PDF for Good Country People by Flannery O'Connor, and then there is a page that is Guide for Analysis Notes. Now, you're not expected to turn anything in on this page, so when you see it, it should just be a canvas for the written word, and there is a picture. So genre is important. We have 3 different types of genres that we're going to be primarily looking at for these short stories that we're going to do for the next couple of weeks. Realism, naturalism, and Southern Gothic. We've actually looked at one from each of these, I think. Some of them you may have looked at with me your freshman year, and if you didn't have me freshman year, then you may have never seen them. But we're going to go through and just talk about what each of them is, and I'm going to try and give you some examples of what each of the 3 are. So the first one, realism. The attempt to represent subject matter truthfully without artificiality and avoiding artistic conventions as well as implausible, exotic, and supernatural elements. Basically, it's got to be real. Hashtag keeping it real. When you're reading realism, it's meant to emulate real life. It's meant to be as realistic as possible. It doesn't have any sort of elements in it of fantasy or magic or anything off the wall. All it is just realistic fiction. It could happen. Maybe. Now, naturalism is one that we haven't talked about so much, and I know I taught Into the Wild, and usually I'll pair that sometimes with a Jack London short story. If you've ever read Call of the Wild, if you've ever read any of those short stories where it's like man versus nature, a lot of times that's really representative of naturalism. Naturalism concludes that natural forces predetermine a character's decisions, making him or her act in a particular way. Now, we did read a short story freshman year that has to do with naturalism, and if you remember, it was from January of freshman year. I guess that would have been 2018 now. It was Fall of the House of Usher. You remember it? Do you remember it? Do you? Okay, anyways, if you don't remember it, well, here's the basic plot. Guy named Roderick, looks really sickly, looks bad, gets visited by his old friend. His old friend finds out that Roderick's gone mad, his sister dies, and ultimately the thing that causes Roderick's downfall is the House of Usher itself. Remember, with naturalism, basically naturalism is where in any way, shape, or form a character is influenced by his or her surroundings. So for example, like let's say a character were out in nature, they were going on some sort of an adventure and there was a mountain in the way that stopped them, and then there was a snowstorm. That is more so naturalism. It is similar to realism, and I did put a sentence here that says realism poses that a decision of a character comes from his or her response to a certain situation. That's kind of an intermingling or mix of the two, but when you have naturalism, it's primarily concerned with where the character is and what happens. Think about as well A Rose for Emily when we read that. That has a lot of elements of naturalism in it. Emily herself is a direct reflection of her world that she lives in. And think about even her house. It's still old, it's decrepit, it's sort of crumbling while everything else is being rebuilt and changed. She is a direct reflection of those old ways that the South used to live versus the new things that are sort of springing up and cropping up around her. And the last one is Southern Gothic. Now, A Rose for Emily also falls into that term of Southern Gothic. And if you look at the definition, includes deeply flawed, disturbing, or eccentric characters who may be involved in hoodoo, decayed, or derelict settings, grotesque situations, and other sinister events relating to or stemming from poverty, alienation, crime, or violence. That particular genre, it always has to do more so with outsiders. Southern society, as we sort of talk about it, and I mean, you live it. You live in the South. Hey, y'all. But anyways, so with Southern Gothic, it's always sort of focused on some kind of an outsider, or there's someone in some way who's alienated from society for a certain reason. Maybe it's because of their beliefs that they don't fit in, or maybe it's because they killed their boyfriend and their boyfriend was gay. I'm looking at you, Rose for Emily. But anyways, now the second piece that I'm having you really look at is characterization. I always focus on this because I don't think there's any way possible that you can read a short story and not pay attention to how the characters develop throughout the course of it. That really gets into that universality and that meaning, which is the third part that we'll be looking at in a second. But as far as characterization goes, so I want you more so to focus on indirect characterization than the direct pieces of characterization. Don't look for pieces where they say, oh, here she was, a young girl of 17, afraid of everything. No. I want you to look for those things that are not so direct or in your face, some of the things that they do or say, maybe some of the actions that they're taking throughout the story, how they respond to other characters, how they're responding to their environment. All of those things are more so concerned with indirect characterization, and that's really the primary thing I want you to focus on. Because a lot of times authors will weave in little details and little passages and little tiny, maybe positives in a sentence. And when you look at that and when you see it, you may think it's insignificant. However, those can be some of the most telling things about a character and some of the things that you can delve into the most when you are actually doing your analysis of that character. Now, in addition to indirect characterization, I am having you as well look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I did provide a little infographic, and I'll put it over here if I can figure out how to do that. But basically the infographic, you're looking at 5 primary sections: self-actualization, esteem needs, belongingness and love needs, safety needs, and physiological needs. Now, all 5 of those are just sort of blanket terms for particular things that a character needs before he or she can grow. So a character needs to have their physiological needs met, like food, water, warmth, and rest, before they can actually have those safety needs met, before they can have those belongingness and love needs met. Now, I know you did this in English 10 before, from what I understand. You have looked at this previously, and we talked about it a little bit with Macbeth, but this is another good way for you to kind of get into understanding the psyche of that character. Now, getting into the last section, universality, what I'm basically asking is thinking about how does this fit into the bigger picture of the world? Is this a particular story that has maybe psychological messages? How does it relate to history or to spirituality or morality or just society in general? Now, I know society has been memed, but as far as the other ones go, I think that they're important to look at. And society, so far as what that means, is just how people are, or culture. I would almost replace that word with culture. But as far as history, like let's think about again A Rose for Emily, which was a story that we read at the beginning of the year. With A Rose for Emily, that heavily ties into the universality understanding of Southern history. People in the South were treated sort of as these old outcasts on the edges of society because they refused to change and to join the nation as they fought to end slavery, etc., etc. And so Emily herself is a clear reflection of the history of the South. She goes from being proud and esteemed to eventually losing her father, to losing her lover, to having absolutely nothing and dying completely on her own, which is exactly the history of the South in the American Civil War. Proud, has someone to stand up. People talk about Jefferson Davis maybe as being a potential sort of little symbolic tie-in to Emily's father. And eventually when he's gone and that's dissolved, the South still wants to hold on to that pride, and they want to find something new to love about themselves, or maybe that could be symbolized through Homer Barron, you know, Emily's gay boyfriend. But that doesn't quite turn out the way, because he goes right back, or he wants to go back up north, and she ends up killing him and having naps with his dead body. But anyways, so on with that, I want you to really think about if there are any deeper meanings that you can connect to the story, either on a psychology level, on a spirituality level. Think about religion, think about morality, think about society, because that's what literature is meant to do. Literature, as far as it's concerned, yes, it entertains. We love it. We love to read it for its entertainment value. But in particular, these stories that we're looking at for the next couple of weeks, they have really, really, really big implications due to the time period and the places in which they're written. So I will ask you to look a little bit into some of the authors, and I will talk to you about that as well on Thursday. But as far as it's concerned, you really do need to get into that mindset of how does this impact my understanding of the world, and not just, why is this woman doing this? Why does she have an artificial leg? Oh yeah, forgot to mention that. Your story features a woman with an artificial leg. So everyone, I would like you now to go ahead and read Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People short story. It is on Canvas. I think it's 10 pages. If you can find an audiobook version of it, you're welcome to listen to it. I'll see if I can find one, and I'll post a link to it, maybe if I find a good one. But as we know, children, not all audiobooks are created equal, and not all people on YouTube are meant to be narrators. But as far as it's concerned, that story, I want you to think about those things we just talked about. Genre, primarily first. Characterization, how that plays into the story, because the characters in this one are a really, really, really big part. And the last one is universality. How does this play into the way that we view the world? And I guess that's about it. Hey guys, sorry this one was boring. Here's a video of my parents. And as promised, here is a tour of my remote location, safe from the coronavirus. Oh look, we have a traveler coming along with us. And in the distance you can see them. My parents stocking up for the apocalypse. Let's take a look and see what they're up to. Excuse me, sir. How are you preparing for the apocalypse?
I'm gathering a bunch of firewood now, so we can keep warm in the summertime.
That's a smart idea, to burn the corona away. Ma'am, what are you doing to aid in this preparation? You see how they have stockpiled wood? It is in good faith that I have heard it from my father that the CDC may shut the country down for 2 weeks, and so at least they will be able to keep warm. A traveler. Friend, how are you dealing with the corona crazy? He does not wish to speak. Perhaps it is for the best.